Okay, good evening. Good evening. I was not sure I had everybody's attention there. Good evening. Thank you all for coming out tonight. This is the fourth program in the 2026 Great Stone Viaduct Winter Lecture Series. We're almost at the halfway mark. Erica was just saying, oh, this is the halfway, and I said it will be after tonight. So we have 4 more programs coming up in March. Erica will tell you about our next one, but if you don't have a brochure, there are brochures on that back table that have our March events in as well. So I know you're all eager to hear about Belmont County and its long-standing relationship with coal tonight, and here's where my bad puns come in. Before we start digging into that history, I do have a few public service announcements for the library. Last week, I mentioned that our cardio drumming class meets on Monday nights at 6 p.m. If you want to try that out, you'll get to feel like a rock star while getting a good workout. The library does have some kits for beginners, so you don't have to have your own gear to try it out. All ages and abilities are welcome. That's every Monday night at 6 p.m. We also have our little bookworm storytime and craft for kids ages 3 through pre-K. We have 2 of those a week, one on Thursday night at 5 p.m. and the other one on Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. We also have a Bright Minds Book Club for kids grades 1 through 8. The younger ones meet with one person and the older ones meet with another person. That meets the last Tuesday of the month at 4 p.m. We pick a theme for that, and then the kids have the entire month to pick a book and read a book that follows that theme, and then they get together at the end of the month to discuss the books that they read and then do a craft that's related to that theme. So March, because it's St. Patrick's Day month, our theme is green. So kids just pick a book on the theme of green, and then on March 31st, I think is the last Tuesday of the month, they'll meet at 4 p.m. to discuss those books and do a craft. We also have a homeschool learning club that meets the 3rd Wednesday of the month at 2 p.m. This is for kids who are being homeschooled ages 5 to 10. It gives them an opportunity to socialize, and we also provide a STEAM activity. That is the 3rd Wednesday of the month at 2 p.m. And we also have an after-school teens program that meets twice a month. Those dates do vary depending on the activity. I meant to put out flyers on the back, but I forgot to grab them, but there are flyers for that upstairs. So please do check out the brochures on the back of the table before you leave if you have kids, and any of those programs sound interesting. And then, of course, every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. in February and March, we have these great winter lectures. Winter lectures, Great Stone Viaduct Winter Lecture Series programs. We do this in partnership with, or you might say collectively, with the Great Stone Viaduct Society. And here to tell you more about that tonight is the committee chair for the Winter Lecture Series, Erica Keller.
Thank you so much. Well, kind of, if you've been here several weeks, you probably have heard my spiel, but we are so glad to see new faces every week. Every week we see new faces, and every week we see returning faces, and we're so grateful you can all join us and be here. And every week we have a new experience here and a new topic, and this week is no exception, and I can't wait to hear the presentation. In conjunction with the presentation, I just wanted to announce this was given to me by one of our visitors tonight. If anyone is familiar with the Willow Grove Mine area, there will be a Willow Grove Mine Memorial Service. This is held yearly now in honor of the 72 lives lost in the Willow Grove Mine explosion on March 16th, 1940. The Friends of the Willow Grove Memorial would like to invite everyone to the memorial service, and that will be Saturday, March 14th at 11 a.m. at the Willow Grove Memorial site. So if you guys could join, that would be wonderful. And it will be a yearly thing, yes. So if anyone is interested in joining the Great Stone Viaduct, we are always looking for members, and there are varying degrees of membership. If you would like to join at the $50 level, you will receive a free calendar. This is a collection of photographs that Dan Frizzy has taken over the years and has dedicated and donated them to the library. And this will be the start of a collection, I believe, of 5 calendars, and this is just the first. So this will be a free gift with your $50 membership. And we have, if the $50 doesn't work, we have other levels. If you would be interested in becoming a member, we have all kinds of information on the back table for membership. And we are excited. We hope you join us next week and all the weeks to come, maybe with some spring weather, hopefully, or if not, the groundhog was right and we'll have more snow coming. But next week's program, we hope you join us for that, and there is no snow. But we'll be welcoming Charles Gent, and he will present the West Virginia Penitentiary Prison Life, Ghosts, and Tour Stories. We always love the murder and supernatural. A former guard and later tour guide at the West Virginia Penitentiary, Charles Gent, will present an open Q&A exploring the realities of prison life, the facility's haunting legends, and its evolution into modern historic site. Some artifacts from the penitentiary will be on display, courtesy of Mr. Gent. Bring your curiosity. The interactive program invites attendees to ask questions and hear firsthand stories from someone who lived the history. So we hope to see you here next week for that lecture. So thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed this evening. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Erica. And I do want to just emphasize that next week's program is not a traditional lecture. It is a Q&A, so do bring your questions. He will have a ton of stories, but he does want people, the audience, to be asking specific questions about that. Before we get started, I do want to mention that the restrooms, if you're new to us, the restrooms are through the hallway to the left and to the left. These programs are live streamed, so if you missed any of our previous ones or will miss any of our upcoming ones, they are online. They are broadcast on our Facebook and YouTube channels, and then we put them on our website the day following the program. And then finally, before I introduce tonight's speaker, I do ask that everybody silence their cell phones now, out of courtesy for our speaker. And with that, I will introduce her. Okay. Gwynn Stewart joined the OSU Extension Office in 2018 as a Noble County Community Development Educator, where she also serves as the Economic Development Director. She's presented at state, regional, national, and international conferences, is an author of an extension bulletin, 18 fact sheets, and 3 online curriculums. Her research, as we will learn tonight, focuses on whole impact and entrepreneurship. She supports communities with grant writing and administration, having secured nearly $30 million in grants. And I know that was at the time that this biography was written. I don't know if that's a larger number now. She's the vice chair of the National Extension Tourism Design Team, chair of the NACDEP's Communication, I've practiced these acronyms before, and the Ohio State Extension BRE State Team, and is a member of the ESP's Professional Development and the Ohio JCEP Marketing Committees. In 2015, she earned the Ohio Economic Development Institute's Ohio Certified Professional Honor and was the recipient of the JCEP and ESP Award for Inspired Community Engagement. Everybody, please welcome with us tonight, Gwynn Stewart.
Thank you. Thank you all. It's great to be with you. I make home in Monroe County between Woodsville and Louisville, so we always are coming through this way on Route 7. I've never been to your library, so I'm happy to be here with you all tonight. There are probably people in this room who know more about Belmont County coal history than I. But what I want to share with you is a little about the research that we've done on a team with Ohio State, really looking at coal transition and community resilience. And so, as she mentioned, I do work with Ohio State University Extension. One of the things that I do when I talk about the coal topic is always disclose that I am a coal miner's daughter, right? It gives you a framework that others don't have. And so I think it's important to always disclose that. I have a picture of my father here on the table. He really was in the International Union of Operating Engineers and was a mechanic who worked on the equipment. You really never saw him without a cat hat, because he worked on Caterpillar equipment most of his entire career in Belmont County in the surface mines, and is where he made his living to really bring home the bacon and take care of 6 kids and a wife. He was a hard worker in the day, and then he came home and worked hard on the farm in the evening. And so he's a big part of my interest in coal. What I'd like to do tonight is just give you an overview of what we want to cover. I want to start with a little history of extension, and then give you a brief Ohio coal history, tell you a little more about those 3 research focus areas that we looked at, one including Belmont County, the loss of coal and community impact, and then at the end, a little look at what we learned about coal and creativity and placemaking in communities who are in the coal region. So to start, I'd always like to share Extension's history. So by show of hands, how many of you are familiar with Ohio State University Extension? A few, maybe a third of you. Okay, so this is good. What we like to do is just share that Extension began after the Civil War. So President Lincoln, looking at a country that had been war-torn and devastated, looking toward the future, really looked for a future with a university system that would bring higher education to the common man. And so the Congress appropriated funding through the Morrill Act in 1862 to give states opportunity to buy or to use the land that they had to create a university system called the land-grant university system. Your Ohio State University was then founded as Ohio's land-grant university. The Cornerstone College was created as the College of Agriculture and Mechanical Studies. So it was founded, and then several years later, the land-grant system grew, and they realized that they needed a system for research on the farm because there was a great focus on agriculture and mechanical works, and so they created the funding through the Hatch Act for research farms. In Ohio, Ohio State has farms kind of around the state. In Worcester, there's one in Noble County that really focuses on beef and cattle, beef and sheep farming, one at South Centers in Piketon, and then ATI up in the Northwest. And then in 1890, the Congress appropriated funding to add historically black colleges to the land-grant system. And Ohio's Central State University in the southwest corner of the state is your partner in the historically black college setting. And then finally, the Smith-Lever Act of 1914 established what's known as cooperative extension. And the idea is that all of this information and research that the universities are doing needs to come down into the community. So what they're learning about how to plant flowers and make them grow and how to do all of the things that they're studying needs to come down to the community. And so the cooperative extension was born. In Ohio, it looks like an office in every county. We partner with the county commissioners. They are, by Ohio Revised Code, required to provide office space for extension. And then some of the counties do funding from the Commissioner's General Revenue Fund. Each county is a little different. It depends on the county's ability, on how many staff, and how the offices are operated. In Noble County, where I work, we are funded, one of 11 counties that are funded by a property tax levy. A lot of conversation in Ohio right now around property taxes and levies and this process. But that is how we are funded. You'll see here a map of all of the universities across the nation that are part of this land-grant university system. And the beauty of that is that as a land-grant employee, I can tap into resources from any of these universities across the system. There's a lot of great national collaboration to do that. And so we have 3 missional areas. We do find our home in that Cornerstone College, still today called the College of Food, Agricultural, and Environmental Sciences. And we do teaching, research, and then extension into communities. And our iconic areas of service are agriculture and natural resources. You have 4-H youth development. Any 4-H'ers in the room? Couple, yeah. I was a 4-H'er and I was a 4-H mom. So that's a great youth development training program. Community development is where I find my home. We're the smaller group in Ohio. And then family and consumer sciences. You'll find folks in family and consumer sciences who teach things like Tai Chi. They help the master gardeners. There's just a wide variety of programs and services to be found at your extension office. At the bottom there, I encourage you to look them up. Anytime you're in a county and you want to know more, you just put the county name .osu.edu, and you'll find that county's website with their staff listing, their program listing, and you can find more about extension in that local area. Any questions on extension? Okay. So really, I just want to share some coal history that our team learned as we began this process. We had several teammates who looked at the Ohio coal history. And this is high level. Coal was first noted in Ohio as early as 1748, as you'll see there. And from the 1800s into 1940s, underground mining was the principal method in Ohio. Coal has been and remains the single most important mineral commodity ever produced in Ohio. And our early pioneers obviously used it for themselves, but then quickly realized that it had a bigger market. And commercial generation of electricity by steam power for coal-fired boilers began in the 1880s. And then you'll see here a little more about surface mining. Obviously, that was a big part of mining in Belmont County, which is removing the layers of soil and rock called the overburden above the coal seam and then extracting the coal. And what you do also see in Ohio that is strict is the reclamation of the mine land once that process is done. Companies have to have a plan for how they're going to reclaim land and make it was. And Ohio's coal history, obviously you see Belmont tops the state. As far as producing counties, it's the all-time leader in coal production. You see many of the counties around you on the list. Even counties like Muskingum and Noble, where I work, are part of that. And these are some of the photos that the team found from Belmont County, including that Gem of Egypt machine from the 60s. Belmont, also just a timeline here from 1959 into the 70s, a major growth of the surface mining industry, a reduction in the regional coal demand in the 80s and 90s. And then 2010s, Belmont County was still home to some major operations such as the Century Mine. And then in 2020, a sharp statewide drop, decreasing activity, including that in Belmont, as well as the Century Mine closure in 2022. So really just recently, if you look at the ODNR coal permits, the companies that are still operating are shown here. And that you'll see in 2024, the production for Belmont was third in Ohio behind Harrison and Noble County. Again, surface mining in Ohio was reported as early as 1810, and we boasted some of the largest surface mining equipment in the world. Like the Big Muskie that you see there, and that Big Muskie bucket then is enshrined at the Morgan County Jesse Owens Park along the Appalachian Byway, which is State Route 78. And so that's a neat park where you can go and see that stand in the bucket. It's a great historic park. It gives you the history of mining in the region. And it is along the Appalachian Byway, just kind of a side plug for the Appalachian Byway, which is State Route 78. I have some materials on the table here. I serve as the byway coordinator for this scenic byway, and the thought behind this is to get people to take the scenic route, to get off the highway sometimes and journey across the countryside and learn about the little shops, the little towns, the theaters, the restaurants, the grocery stores, different things that you can see. This is 105 miles. It starts in Clarington at the Ohio River Byway, Route 7. It goes across Monroe, Noble, Morgan, and then into Athens, down to Nelsonville. And then there's a little leg up on State Route 83 to the Wilds in Muskingum County, which is a natural opportunity for you to see former coal mining land in a different use. And so there are some materials here if you're interested, and you can learn more about that. Another part of the information that we gathered was more about plant closures. Obviously, coal-fired plants are about a 40-year lifespan. Some operate longer. So from 2007 to 18, more than 500 coal-fired generators were retired. And utilities have also announced more closures by the end of last year. You are seeing, though, that there are some new federal dollars to help some of these coal plants stay open with prevention of these decommissionings with this new funding. In 2006, coal generated 87% of our state's electricity, and now it's only about a third. Coal plant closures impact coal production, obviously. We've seen as the closures have increased, the production also diminishes. And obviously the low cost abundant natural gas production is another impact to this energy. From a world power supply look, 35% of the world's supply is still coal. So a lot of the coal that is mined in America is shipped abroad. But this fact is interesting. Still 1 in 10 people in the world are without access to electricity. So in the Woodsville area over the weekend, there was a major power outage for a couple of days, and you would have thought the world was ending, right? And then we look at this fact that 1 in 10 people worldwide still are without electricity. And we realize how important it is to us. So the need for energy expansion continues, and you see that need driven by the growth of home construction and these new data centers that are all in the news. And a lot of it too is just use. So I live in a home that is the home that I grew up in, a turn-of-the-century farmhouse. One of the things that I quickly remembered when I moved back home into this place is that each room only has one plug-in. Each room only has one plug-in, one electric plug. And so, you know, when you have two phones and you've got your clock and you've got all these things that you want to get plugged in, right? You quickly realize how, at the turn of the century, electricity was used in a very minimal way in our homes versus the way that we approach electricity today. You think about just at your desk with your computer or your TV, how many things have to get plugged in, and how much more we use today than we did in the past. I also think it's important for people to understand the regional energy process. So we're part of this PJM Regional Electric Transmission Organization. And PJM stands for Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Maryland. Those are the 3 originating states that formed together this power pool in 1927, and then that grew. It operates the wholesale electricity market and the high voltage grid for our region. These are some of the statistics from their annual report at the end of 2024. So look at these numbers, 369,000 plus square miles of territory. 67 million people are served by this multi-state grid, and 88,000 plus miles of transmission lines. I love this picture of the PJM Command Center. Can you imagine commanding a system that large, serving that many people with that many power lines and that many? It's really breathtaking when you think about it. So their regional energy mix still is about coal, natural gas, and nuclear. Coal still leading the mix with a little bit of wind and solar mix in there. So that just gives you a look at our region and how it is coordinated and how it is how the power mix is put together. And so this next part is a little more about our study. This is the picture of the study team in Noble County. This was led by Jeffrey Jaquette. He's an assistant professor at the School of Environmental and Natural Resources, and several others throughout different colleges at Ohio University and some of our grad students who participated in the project. And it was really about this group who wanted to document how the coal industry has shaped Ohio, our culture, our economy, look at how changes in the coal industry impact communities, and then research as well, looking at an arts lens that blends social science, fine arts, photography, library research, theater, and extension, of course, to help tell the story. And we did this through a method process where we collected data, historical and archival information, artifacts, photos, and artwork, and we performed a variety of key interviews in each of the 3 areas that I'll talk about on the role of coal mining, transportation, its use, And the team produced a variety of reports and a project website, as well as some theatrical and fine art products. So I love this quote: Appalachia has been struggling with the transition from coal. One lesson to emerge is there's no one size fits all for coal communities. So as coal leaves the community or transitions away, it's different in each community. And what we looked at was Belmont, Coshocton, and Noble County. All three are in Ohio's Appalachian region. If you're not familiar with Appalachia, it's a federally designated area. The top map shows you the portions of all of 13 parts or all of 13 states that form the Appalachian region. And then within Ohio, 32 counties that are highlighted are those Appalachian counties. So really from Brown County all the way kind of up the river and up to the top of the state. And this is the website where you can find more information on our reports and research at Energize Ohio under fossil fuel energy resources. And then the rest of the website is really just a library with energy programs and resources that you can look at, as well as this database of energy efficiency and renewable energy information that you might find of a resource. So I want to just briefly go through what we learned and what we looked at in each of the communities. So in Belmont, we looked at the loss of the Berger power plant and the history of surface and underground mining. Same with Coshocton, only the loss of the Conesville AEP plant. And then in Noble, we looked at the loss of Central Ohio Coal and did some research with BNN Coal, who is still an operational surface mining organization there in Noble. So Belmont County, home to about 67,000 plus residents, is located on I-70, obviously one of the U.S.'s busiest interstates. And the Berger power plant was commissioned in the 40s along the river and was closed in 2010 and demolished in 2016. You'll see the 854-foot stack was demolished through combined efforts of First Energy, Jobs Ohio, and PTT Global. There has been an interest for several years in potentially building an ethane cracker plant there. Jobs Ohio is still in contract, and the site redevelopment has been prepared by some funding through Jobs Ohio. What we learned really from all of these communities is that economic impact in coal communities is diverse. Each community is impacted in different ways, and they recover in different ways. Coal losses most directly impact community tax bases, obviously, and the local workforce, for sure. And then the growing tourism, ecotourism transition has been of interest to us. Almost in all of these communities, once the surface mining is done, a lot of this land is then repurposed toward ecotourism. Places like the Wilds in Muskingum, the DNR recreation lands in the Jesse Owens Park in Morgan County. Tens of thousands of acres that are now owned by the State Department of Natural Resources for ecotourism that were formerly mined lands by AEP in those Noble, Morgan areas. Tri-Valley Wildlife Area is Coshocton area, and then the Egypt Valley Wildlife Area. The other thing we saw is that landscapes and labor both play a large role in interpreting the transition and the story of coal, for sure. And then we also looked at this through a trauma-informed lens. Trauma-informed care is when you look at someone who has had an impact, some sort of a trauma. It's often used in child abuse or in the homes where a wife might be mistreated. But it can also be used in a community that has the trauma of losing a power plant. When you lose a power plant, you lose jobs. You sometimes lose schools because schools close. All of the downstream businesses that support that process are impacted. And so trauma is an important way to recognize and be transparent and give time for communities to grieve and facilitate peer support with the change and transition. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Belmont County weathered the transition with what we call resilience, a little better than some of the other towns that we studied. The USDA defines resilience as the ability of a region to anticipate, withstand, and bounce back from shocks. A shock like the loss of a power plant or a mining industry. And so in Belmont, we saw shifting economies toward regional healthcare, the state correctional services. And as you study coal communities, you'll see across the Appalachian region almost an intentional siting of correctional facilities, state and federal, in areas where coal has left, because these are jobs that coal miners could then transition into. And that was one thing that I saw clearly in this study. And then obviously the oil and gas development in Belmont County has been an important part of the transition of the past several years. You are 3% of Ohio's oil production, 24.65% of natural gas production, and you lead the state in producing in gas. I find this fact interesting that if Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia and the shale play area were a country, we would be the third largest in the world in natural gas production. That statistic coming out of Jobs Ohio. So this production in Belmont and Noble counties have been a key driver post-coal for the region. And the shale region is home to about 12 natural gas power plant projects when we did the study, and I believe there's probably more now since our study concluded. We did see this emerging ecotourism, as I mentioned a minute ago, and you might think about, like, is that strange because really tourism? But when you think about outdoor recreation as a sector in America, look at that number in the middle, $1.2 trillion. Especially since the pandemic, people want to get outside. They want to be outside, be active with their families. And so outdoor recreation as a sector has really grown immensely in the past several years. It's two times more larger than the oil and gas sector. And we see about 118 million travelers, and they spend about $1,000 on a trip. So if they're taking a trip once a month, that's a big number, right? So tourism it then is funded by the lodging taxes. So when you stay in a hotel, you pay a tax, and that tax goes to your Convention and Visitors Bureau to then help promote tourism. So it's another way for communities, especially in rural areas, to bring people to their communities to spend money. Shifting now to Noble, you'll note just a drastic difference in the population number. They're about 14,400, and I would say 2,500 of that is in our state prison. So if you really look at the on the ground, it's about 12,000 residents in Noble County. And they're the last county that was created in Ohio. They were carved out of portions of several counties around them. People say, why is the shape of Noble so weird? And it's really because they carved parts of it out of other counties. And it's bisected by 77 north-south, and we're about 30 minutes south of your I-70. And they've seen about a 31% loss in natural resources. And the loss of the Central Ohio Coal Company in '91, which employed about 1,000 people and produced, look at that number, 1.7 million tons of coal annually. So they do still have current surface mining at BNN Coal and the Wigville mine. That coal seam production began in 2017. Those are still good jobs, excellent paying. People want to work there, so it's definitely harder these days to work out a living in coal, but some are still doing it. And then their transition really has been around that correctional services. It's still the largest employer, the Noble County Correctional. Light manufacturing, there are several light manufacturers in our district, and then logistics, because of I-77, is kind of getting some wings with it. We are underbilled, as that picture in the middle shows, on a new business park because our current parks are all full. This is modeled, believe it or not, after the parks in Barnesville here in Belmont County. We partnered with the Belmont County Port Authority, and Larry Mary looked at that hillside and said we could build there. And then we worked together then to get the Jobs Ohio project. We were the last county in the state of Ohio to get a Jobs Ohio project. They have about $2 million in this $4.8 million project. We have 6 pads coming The first building is up and another to come. And so this is hopeful for us to create a place to attract business for jobs. And then we're underbilled with a Caldwell downtown revitalization through the Appalachian Community Grant Program. And Noble County does not have a hospital or an ER of any sort. And so we were lucky to get about an $8.3 million grant for a new health center and a dental center. We have one part-time dentist in our county. So we're terribly medically underserved. And this will be a health center that's connected with the school system right there at the school so that the students can come there. There's a workforce component. If they're seeking healthcare jobs and careers, they can go there and learn. And the partners are Genesis out of Zanesville and Family Tree Dental. So that's sort of how Noble County is finally beginning to transition. Coshocton County is the mid-size of the three that we studied with 36,000 residents. If you're not familiar with Coshocton, they're along the historic water canals, home to the largest bacon processing plant through Kraft Heinz, and home to an American flag manufacturer. They lost AEP Coombsville power plant in 2020, and it was open since 1957. So it was a 6 coal-fired boiler generated 1,500 plus megawatts of power. You can see here that this former plant the space is being revitalized and redeveloped by the Frontier Group. It will feature some logistics and manufacturing, a data center, and a solar farm. So there's a transition again, a little different. And one of the things that we learned in the interviews with Coombsville, because it was really the most recent closure, is that whole piece of what is the personal impact as you talk to the people in the community that have lost a coal power plant or lost coal mining that is coupled with that, because when you lose the plant, you lose the opportunity for the mines to produce to feed it. And there was a lot of talk about how they never really got a chance to grieve the loss, to get together after the closure and talk about it. And so our team, especially with the arts team, looked at something that we ended up calling calling hours. And it was a community event where people could come together to celebrate and to talk and to greet again the people that they'd worked with for decades, to take a minute to just celebrate what that plant had meant to the community. And so it was a theatrical performance that utilized the data and the interview setting. We met kind of at dusk, and then as dark fell, you will see that we just projected these life-size drawings that we created through the art department from the photos and from the interviews that we had, for people to just take a minute and celebrate like you would celebrate at a funeral, celebrate the life of something, celebrate the memories. So I'd like to just read quickly one of the eulogies that was read that night. This is from an AEP supervisor, and it's called The Great Work of the Plant. He says, like many of us, I spent my entire career at this plant. I started on the floor and worked my way up into management. No matter where I was working, I worked all around. No matter what I was doing, there wasn't a day when I walked into the heat and noise that it just didn't feel right. It was right. With all this experience in my belt, there aren't many first times. But here I am standing, first time in front of you, reading a eulogy. I thought I'd start with this quote from Henry Ford. It's the same way Ford's eulogy started. Here it is. There is too much to do in a day to spend minutes of it in the futility of grief. So this quote goes well with what I want to talk about, which is not grief, but the great work of this plant. At our peak, we were at 2,000 megawatts. That's a lot. That's electricity for 2 million homes. That's more than twice the size of Columbus. A fifth or sixth of the state of Ohio. It's a lot of lights, laundry machines, houses heated and cooled, and now these days all those devices that we talked about. I'm not sure the layperson understands much of the process or about the product. You can't see it. You can't store it. It's hardly a thing. These electrons that are flowing through the wires constantly distributed over this volatile marketplace, all the perfections and complex processes. Think about 35,000 gallons of river water per minute, made purer than pure. Insanely precise pressures, temperatures, volumes, adjustments that accommodate for the percent of carbon or silica or aluminum and clay, the coal that comes in. Measurement, waste management, watchfulness. So much effort. All you have to do is look at the miles and miles of tubing and water and steam and oxygen that go through the plant to appreciate the miles of potential leaks and breaks. That alone was enough to make what we did feel like magic. Inside supercritical unit number 4, steam was compressed to such a degree that it behaved like liquid. It was gas, vapor, and it acted like vapor. Wrap your mind around that magic. Every day, in the face of danger, we worked together to make this magical stuff called electricity. We didn't ask why or what for. We were making something people need. There was pride in this power and importance of it all, so much pride in this rural workforce that was led by people with vision. So that was the type of eulogy that was heard that evening. There were folks from schools, some children who told their stories, a pastor, a truck driver who brought the coal to the plant. And so it just gave the community a minute to stop and think and appreciate what the plant meant to the whole town of Coshocton. Also, our study team did some community art projects at the university, of the things that we discovered. And finally, I just want to share just some images of some of the things that we uncovered. I love this picture to the left that we found in a youth art competition. A student did a pencil drawing of a photograph of her father. And I've been to Barnesville in Belmont County a million times in my life. We always went to the dentist there. We'd go to the DQ. And never in my life did I stop and look at this mural that's there that tells the story of Belmont's coal. From the days when you used donkeys and the cart mining to the gem of Egypt. And then there to the far right, the statue from Guernsey County and Byesville. Just the strength of that coal miner space and what it says to you. And as you look at the community art around this sector, you'll see that it demonstrates creativity and diversity. Public art takes on many forms around this whole topic. It really, though, does gather, wants you to gather and converse about it. So these statues are so strong. They show the men who worked this backbreaking work in the mines. No community on the face of the earth has ever built except on the skills and resources and gifts of the people who live there. And so more than not, we often saw public sculptures like these, memorials like she mentioned in the announcements, memorials to men who died in accidents, men who were injured. And these community memorials and events give opportunities for people to process these things together. And also the personal artwork. I loved this oil painting to the left of the Conesville plant, the colors of it, the dark sky against the dark pole in the foreground, and the slurry pond. These historic installations like the Muskie Bucket that you'll find in Morgan County, and then these interpretive signage, and also this art piece in the lower right-hand corner from the Columbus Museum of Art that I saw, of the women picking up the coal along the rail, the turn of the century. Think how much that was done, and then those coal pieces were brought back to feed that stove they were cooking on, right? So this artwork just really tells you a story of the history of the sector. In Noble County, if you visit the Noble Museum in downtown Caldwell, you'll find a great display, great volunteers who will tell you about the Central Ohio Coal Company and the Big Muskie Bucket. And on the right there, if you go to the Caldwell Food Center, they have an emporium where they have items for sale. And you'll see items like this, hand carved from the coal mined at E&N Coal. I couldn't leave this little praying coal miner behind. It just spoke to me. So many things that I want to just take a moment to reflect on the strength of this sector and the strength of coal in our region. So the symbolism is important. The cultural attachments to coal as a way of life, the ability to tell the story of coal, and this creative way to do it. This decanter to the left here is a ceramic decanter that my dad got for Christmas one year at work. It was a surface coal miner. It was filled with alcohol. When he passed away, we realized he'd never uncorked it. But just these visual telling of the symbolism. And the next few slides are just some of the images that we uncovered of Ohio history and coal. I love the faces of the men who did this hard work. The coal towns that popped up around the region, the company store, the songs, oh my soul to the company store. Does that ring a bell? The animals and the men working together in the early days. I especially love this one of the faces of the men ready. It looks like a shift change to me, like they're getting ready to go with the animals. The little lights at the top of their helmets that really probably didn't do much in the darkness. The retirees and the stories they can tell. The Ohio River and the importance it had to transportation of coal still does today. You always see barges up and down. The importance of rail and all of the trains and the communities that popped up around the trains and popped up and then have gone, since gone, you know, with the history of each county. In Noble County, as the coal left, the rail left. And for modern day economic development, that's left us at a great disadvantage. The building of these power plants that powered, as we read a moment ago, how many megawatts a day, how many hundreds of thousands of gallons of river water, so often sited along the rivers. And then the time for change. The only people who can save the community are the people in the community, is the quote that I'd like to end with in this, from the After Coal documentary. So hopefully that was informational. I'd love to take questions and see if there's any questions from the group. Thank you for your time. Yes?
That your little coal dolls there, is it anthracite or bituminous?
You know, I don't know the answer to that. It's mine at B&N, so what are B&N coal mines? Bituminous, they'd say.
Oh,
And you'll see up here on the table a little more information about the Belmont case study, if you'd like a copy of that, and some information about the Byray too. Any other questions? Yes.
You mentioned Egypt Valley and oil and gas. Do you know if there are any active wells in Egypt Valley?
As I read, they requested the permits but not been approved.
do you have any kind of books on that? Have you presented?
Any books?
Or,
Not on the coal topic, no. Just the case study.
case?
Yep.
Do you have any pamphlets on it?
Just that case study there on the table. Yep. Yeah. Anybody else?
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. I'm supposed to pull a number. Do one.
Yeah, that one is for the door prize.
This is for the door prize.
Thank you.
2517935.
That's a blue ticket.
It's a red ticket. 7935. Anybody? Nobody have it? Are we picking on them? 7933. There you go. Right here in the purple. Okay. The other one. 6024147.
Wait, what's it?
4147.
Please.
Okay.
I'm close, close.
How about another round of applause? Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again next week for some ghost stories. So, thank you all. Drive carefully. Thank you so much.